We're going to call our board meeting to order. Stand for the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, everybody. Roll call, all board members are present. We have proper notification of an open meeting. First action item is recommendation to approve the minutes of the January 9th, 2019 regular board meeting.
So move.
I'll second.
With a motion and second, any question on the minutes? Hearing none, all in favor state aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Next action item is resolution to approve the bill list, which includes a packet.
I move to accept the bill list.
Second.
With a motion and second, any question on the bill list? Hearing none, all in favor state aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Next item is communication and comments from members of the public.
No one signed up.
Nobody signed up. Okay. Superintendent's report, Laura.
So the first item in the superintendent report is related to our focus plan. I wanted to provide an update. As you know, the focus plan was developed more than a year ago with a lot of input from staff members and students and community members. Once we got that focus plan into place that contains our vision, our mission, and 4 enduring goals, our next step has been this last semester getting feedback from our staff in terms of what's their feedback on those goals? What are we already doing well? And what are areas that we should either improve or explore? And so we had a survey put out to staff, but we've also had conversations in different professional development days back in August and in October. And so the document that you have linked in your board packet, the first page is the focus plan. So that should look familiar to you. And then the second page is a summary of the faculty discussions and feedback received on our goals. So for instance, we have those 4 enduring goals. Our first goal is prepare students for success beyond high school graduation. And then the way for each goal, it's summarized, is we have items that the staff feels excited about and enthused about. So for instance, with that one, preparing students for success after high school, faculty seem to appreciate the balance of content they're teaching with meeting the broader purpose of school and education. We're not just about content, we're also about skills and life skills, social emotional wellness. And then the second half of each piece of summary within the goals says, when asked about 1 or 2 things to consider related to this goal, then we got feedback from staff. So for instance, continue to learn more about life skills development in our students, continue all pathways for post-secondary, ways to celebrate them equally, audit and make sure our programs and instruction impact all students in reaching their goals. And then the third consideration was consider additional ways to support students' social and emotional health. So you can see each enduring goal has some things that we're already doing well that our staff is saying, make sure we keep doing that well. And then some could be suggestions, or it could just be, let's consider this, let's look into this. As our administrative team, we gathered and summarized that feedback. These are things that stood out. We also know that our focus plan isn't meant to become a lengthy menu of things that we are adding to the plate. We've got a lot going on in our district already, and the focus plan is meant to try and help us focus on what are our key areas that we should be striving for and help us unify in striving toward those areas. A focus plan can also help you take things off the plate. And you don't hear that a lot in schools. There's always so much coming on the plate, but is there a point where we should take something off the plate or change it? If we're adding a new program or initiative, is there something else that's it's run its path and it's been great for 10 years and now it's time to perhaps release that in place of something different. That, to our faculty who are really hardworking, busy people, that sounds appealing. That, gosh, maybe we don't just keep adding new things to the plate. So our administrative team is taking a look at these items, the feedback from our staff, and then we'll be determining our next steps. Just because there are things considered under each goal, it doesn't mean we'll act on all of those immediately, or then we would risk putting a lot on the plate. So we have to think through and prioritize what makes sense to look into immediately and what are things that are more long-range projects. And some are related to each other. So for instance, some of the feedback received was, are we helping our students who struggle in the best, most effective ways? Well, if we look into that, that might be, we might find, yes, we are. We are doing exactly what we should be and we can't think of anything better. Or we might find there might be some better ways of doing this. Changing a format for supporting students could also mean changing a schedule. It also could mean changing roles or personnel. So many things could link together that we want to do these in a very purposeful, strategic way. I would say one thing that was maybe gratifying isn't the right word, but confirming the feedback, much of the feedback that we heard related to our focus plan and those 4 goals was very similar to many topics within our recent staff engagement survey. And you might be thinking, well, it's the same staff, we would expect to hear the same thing, but they were done at different times of the year. The fact that the same topics come up is really good for us to know. I'll give you one example. In both focus plan survey and discussion feedback, as well as our staff engagement survey, the topic of more consistent communication, time to get together as a whole staff. That could be for very professional reasons, or it could just be for social reasons. Let's get to know each other. We're one school, but we're a huge school, and we have 2 campuses. Conceivably, there could be one department, let's just say science, and there might be a teacher in our science department that only teaches at South Campus, another one that only teaches at North Campus, and they might see each other once or twice a month. And that's within one department. Then you start looking at cross-department. Do we have enough time built in for that full staff and cross-department collaboration? So that was something we heard in both of these tools, our focus plan as well as our engagement survey. So now, as an administrative team, we're thinking about what can we do, what should we do, and is there something we should do now, or do we need more exploration of that? Should we be delving deeper into that question with staff? Do we need more time in professional learning together? Do we need more time for just consistent communication with everyone in the room at the same time? Do we need more time to get to know each other as human beings and do something social? We don't want to make judgments on that. We want to find out what are the desires, what are the needs of our faculty, so we can best meet those needs. Ultimately, as we're meeting those needs, it helps students, and that's what this is all about, helping students. So that's one example of something that we'll be looking into and exploring in more depth. Just that idea of more time together for our faculty.
Well, at a time when teachers can leave in the middle of the year or whenever, we need to make sure everybody feels engaged here and not get lost.
Well, and fortunately, that staff engagement survey, we were thrilled with the results.
Mm-hmm. Oh, I know.
It was
I'm just saying, we can't take that for granted,
right.
That we have to be always cognizant and thinking that way, because one of the things that new teachers come in and say is how great the atmosphere here is and how welcome they are and how much it feels like a a family, and we can't rest on those laurels. That has to be constantly in our minds, because our staff is Arrowhead. I mean, and we take such pride in that and what they do for the kids. They're the ones that are facing the kids. You know, we can sit here all we want, but it's what they're doing, and they need to feel cared for, and part of it.
Right.
That is just critical.
Absolutely. And despite engagement survey results being very positive that our staff members are engaged, there's always room to grow and improve. And that's something that we do regularly.
And do it well.
So as I wanted to provide this to the board, I know some of you have had a chance to read it ahead of time. I guess I would just ask, are there any questions about this feedback from staff or our next steps? And then if Greg or Sue or Adam, if you want to chime in and share as well, they are leaders in this.
I think it's been really neat. I know we talked about the focus plan, initiating the focus plan last spring, I believe, 2 springs ago.
2 springs.
Yeah, and some reluctance to say like, now is the time, is this a good time to maybe do this? And I think what we heard from staff members through the process, just their voices at the table about the direction of the school and where we want to go next that was a very positive, I think, process for the health and well-being of the organization. I think the more we can tap into those whole school kind of like conversations, it's one thing to be a leader in the organization, then make sure people are following you and liking kind of not necessarily liking the direction, but believing in the direction and having a voice in it. I think that's where we get sustainability with the change process. And there's always change coming at us. So we have to sort of deflect sometimes, and then we have to also consider what are the things that people are excited about that we need to continue to build from, and what that means is hopefully growth and achievement in our students. So when we have a staff that kind of believes in the direction, I think we see results, and that's I think that's really gratifying. The conversations were really positive, and I think it gave people a chance to feel like they have an equal voice in the direction, that it isn't a top-down organization, that it's one in which we have we want buy-in from the whole. So it was a really, from Laura's direction and from the rest of the team, I think it was a really good process. And now the work, like we keep saying, like now we have to roll up our sleeves. The prioritization and the next steps really become, I think where the rubber is going to meet the road. So far so good.
All I would get is that I think just the process of doing it tells the staff that we care about you, that we want your input, and just the fact that we're doing it, whatever the outcomes are, just that piece of it is I think really important. That they know that we are interested and care about what they have to say and where they're seeing this organization going, because it's not us, it's everyone's driving. You guys, the administration, staff, we're all driving this bus, and we all have to kind of be in the line.
You can have all the direction you want sitting at that table, and if you don't have any believing in it and
Right.
supporting you, it doesn't really matter.
It's much easier to work that way when we're doing the work that everyone finds important than the work that we just
That's
find
right.
that's important. So
That's
it's
right.
a much more efficient
Yeah.
model of doing things. And the nice thing is too is that not only are our staff feeling like they're heard, and the people with the boots on the floor and on the front lines are being heard, but we're starting to do something about it. Laura had her first learn and share session today with staff, which is something that came directly out of the focus plan and climate survey feedback, that people just wanted more communication about what's going on. So that happened today. We have our ad hoc committee being pulled together. Sue, Greg, and I are working on that to look at how are we supporting our students at Arrowhead, and that work will take place this spring, and depending on what comes out of it this spring, we might see changes for next year, or we might say that's a lot of work and we probably need a little bit more time to get underneath it. There's plans to look at the 10-period day and just see if that's going to be something that we want to continue with. You look at some of the stuff like leadership. The leadership course was presented, one of the most recent ones here. Staff wanted to get underway with that. the worries about kids' social emotional health. We conducted the best screener already this year. The work for exploring all pathways, you know, we did the focus plan December 9th last year, and the amount of focus that we're putting now and looking at all pathways for students, not just the four-year college, looking at two-year technical schools more and straight to the world of work. There's been a huge amount of focus on that, and then a lot of Sue and Brenna King's work with tech ed and health sciences and getting students out into real-world work experiences has been underway now, probably even before the focus plan, but it was clear from the staff they want us to continue to go in those directions. So, you know, like Sue Schultz alluded to, that it's very linear thinking now. We get the information, we take it, and we work as, you know, one school towards the common goal. So it's been a very satisfying process so far, and it's good that we'll keep going with it and keep coming back to it and really treat it as a focus plan.
Okay. Any other questions on that focus stuff?
And then my second item is just a review of how we will make up snow and cold day cancellations. I have been in the field of education for 29 years now, and never as a teacher or administrator have I been part of canceling school 5 times in 1 year, and it's only mid-February. Yeah, so we're gonna cross our fingers that spring is here soon. Because people are getting sick of hearing my voice at 4:35 a.m. in the morning, I'm sure, saying school's canceled again. So just a brief rundown for the board, and then if you have questions, feedback. Within our school calendar, let me backtrack. The Department of Public Instruction requires a certain number of instructional hours. They used to work in days, and now they don't. There isn't a required number of days. They do it as a required number of hours. At the high school level, 1,137 hours are required for direct instruction of students. So for instance, we can't count the half-hour lunch period. That's not direct instruction. Within Arrowhead's calendar, we had built in a certain number of hours. I don't have it off the top of my head, but it was worth about 1 3/4 days worth of instructional time. So the first, and actually one of the days that we canceled school, or a couple of days, were Wednesdays, which for us were shorter instructional days, so we actually didn't lose as many instructional minutes. So the first day or so, we weren't needing to make up any time. But once we hit day 3 and day 4 and day 5, we need to make up time. So the 3 ways that we will make up the required time. First, our early release Wednesdays, when students go home about 20 minutes early, and then that's professional collaboration and professional development time. As of today was the last early release Wednesday. So beginning next Wednesday, February 20th, through the remainder of the Wednesdays, we will have full days of school. That doesn't change the bus schedule. The buses come the same time. It doesn't change the bus's timing for the elementary level. That all works out fine. So students will be in their classes longer every day for the rest of the school year because of removing that early release. And then the teachers' professional collaboration time will happen after the school day. So that's the first way we're making up hours. The second way is we will be turning our 3 exam days, final exam days in June, the 10th, 11th, and 12th. What would have been half days of school will now be full days of school. And so that will gain time back. And then our third way, which we determined yesterday and communicated with families and staff today, we will be in school on Monday, April 22nd, which is the day after Easter. That was scheduled to be a 4-day weekend over that Easter holiday, and now we'll be back in session on that Monday. In terms of communicating, We've let staff know, we've let families know, we've contacted the bus company. I've been in contact with our 7 K-8 school districts. So we're all comparing our schedules, making sure the buses work. As I've communicated out to families, there's been 2 letters. One was about a week and a half ago, and then one was today. I would say most of the feedback has been very positive. A lot of thankful, we're glad you're being creative. One person said we were brilliant. Gotta love that.
Yeah.
And so more positive than frustrated, but certainly, and in the communication that I sent out, I said, we fully realize it's messing up schedules. Yeah, there's just no way around it. And if we were to have added 3 or 4 full days, that probably would have messed things up for people. And if we, taking away early releases, that messed up some things for other people. And some people thought it was brilliant. The negative feedback, today there was none. So sending out about April 22nd so far, and it's only been probably 6 hours, but so far there's been no negative feedback about that day. The letter before that talked about the early release Wednesdays and exam days, there were 4 people contacted me. And 3 of them, after I explained a little bit more, they were perfectly fine. So for instance, the one person was concerned about full days of exam because typically kids would go to school in the morning, take 3 exams, then they go home and they study for the next day's 3 exams in the morning. And I explained to this parent, the schedule for those days has not been determined yet, and we'll get that out as soon as possible. We need more discussion and planning. But what that could look like, and apparently several years ago, this happened because of making up snow days as well. What that could look like is students would still take 3 exams a day, but they would start out in the class, and let's just say we're talking about an algebra class. They would go to class, and it might be the first hour of that class is time to study, review, the teacher's there, and then you take the exam. And then you go to the next class, and let's say that's biology. Same thing. You have a certain amount of time that could be for studying, it could be review with the teacher involved, and then you take the exam. So that could help in terms of...
And in some ways, that's better than...
It could be.
Instead of having 3, boom, 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 now you've got study time in between. I mean, that sounds like a win.
It's teachers helping the study process.
Yeah.
So could be. We'll see how that plays out. And the other concern, like I said, there were 4 people that expressed concern. The one person that just she was not happy or satisfied was someone who was very frustrated with having Wednesdays be a full day of school because her child has music lessons, prepaid private music lessons that start at 2:30. And I understand that. That's a tough one. So she felt like it was a pretty unacceptable solution. And we do the best we can. If we have any more snow days or cold days, knock on wood, we probably would then be looking at adding a day to the school year. So right now, exam days are Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday. If that had to be, we would probably add a full day of school on that Monday. And then exams would be Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. No,
Tuesday, Wednesday,
Thursday.
Yeah.
And still full days as I've already explained. If we have any more than that.
July.
Is it every Wednesday early?
Yes.
No, that's what I thought. I just couldn't remember.
Right.
Okay. I think you did a great job. I mean,
Really.
it's not easy. It's not easy,
You
but
can't do it.
I mean, we have to get the hours. And you want to get the hours, and that is what we're in the business of.
Well, we want to get the hours in, and as our administrative team talked about it, we also didn't want to put in the time just for purely compliance sake. As much as we can have it be learning time is what we needed. Now, we heard ideas of getting 2 minutes at the beginning of the day or taking away 5 minutes of lunchtime. I don't know if that adds to learning or not. Now, it also could be, every school district's schedule is different. And it might be they're already booked up and so they're in compliance mode.
No, I think
Everyone's different.
Is there any thought to that concept with the exam day and making that, if that's how it falls, making that the norm?
I
Because it
don't
sounds
know.
like
We
a
have to-
win.
Well, to just gather some feedback
Right.
on how that
Yeah.
helps
Right.
young kids and.
And then a last topic that came up as a question from staff members and from parents, the idea of holding virtual learning days. So if kids are at home on a snow day, can they be doing virtual learning and would that count? We looked into that, or I looked into that with the Department of Public Instruction. And I actually sent that out to families today. I copied and pasted the response because right now the law about school time specifies direct instruction. And there has not been a test case yet to see if at-home learning would comply. The Department of Public Instruction flat out said if it's just doing homework at home or studying at home, that's not going to be considered compliance because it needs to be direct instruction. If you're using virtual learning, it would be a virtual learning online platform that every teacher knows and is trained in. It's established curriculum for each class. And we don't have that for all classes, all teachers. The other components that get tricky is we don't want to set ourselves up for potentially discriminating against any students. So right now, we don't have the means to guarantee every single student has online access at home. We know that the vast majority do, but we can't guarantee it. And we don't have 300 or 400 hotspots to send home with students. The second area of potential discrimination complaints could be we need to have the direct instruction for every single student. And we have some special ed students with special education needs and services that we have to follow their IEP. And so could we guarantee that every student with special needs is receiving the direct instruction related to what their goals are in their IEP? We don't know that we can guarantee that. So could we push forward and try virtual learning? We could, but we'd be putting ourselves at risk for our conditions right now. We'll let someone else be the test case out there, and then we'll see. It could be that the law changes or we get more clarity in the current law from the Department of Public Instruction. They have a legal team that's met on this topic. They've checked with attorneys, and there just isn't clarity yet. So if we get clarity from the law, it's something we can be considering. And as perhaps Arrowhead grows and changes with our own online, we have some online courses during summer school, but we don't have every teacher trained and the curriculum established.
And then a day off like this, how do you do a shop class? How do you have a band do? How do you, there's so many, how do you do an art class? Everybody's at home. They don't have the materials. They don't have. Right.
Plus you're relying on the provider, because I know the last time we had 2 days off in a row, ATTU was out of service in the whole area for those 2 whole days, so.
Right.
Yeah.
Good point.
Not to mention at the 10-year class reunion, kids won't be talking about that great snow day, they'll be talking about the wonderful virtual learning opportunities.
I do appreciate your timeliness on this communication though, because last night the news featured Random Lake, because they're doing a test case of it. So I would assume that people would be
Asking that question.
Yes.
Right.
So your timeliness is good.
Would it be any easier for elementary school to do this sort of thing than a high school, or is
The
that?
online piece. I think that's very dependent on the teacher and the curriculum.
And again, you can't guarantee that everybody has the machinery at home. Say it any different, you know, and then what are they just don't have school and everybody else, you know, I mean, that's huge. Because that is what we're doing.
I just had a question related to snow days in general. You know, when it's snowing and it's really bad in the morning, a few hours later, the roads are passable. Have we ever thought of half day or a late start or anything like that?
Yes, we have. At Arrowhead, we could make that work. Our K-8 feeder districts, and I don't want to speak for all of them, so I'll just say most of them do not care for that idea at all. And it matters because our buses, there's a first line of busing time and then the next line and the third line. So there's 3 different bus times and it rotates through. So is that a possibility? I think so, Arrowhead thinks so, but we're part of a team.
But in childcare, you know, then everybody stays, half the people, do they stay home half a day till their kid gets picked up on the bus to get there, you know, especially the K-8s, those kids aren't, well, let's leave our kindergartner at home until they pick up the bus at 11 o'clock. I mean,
Yeah.
all the arrangements have been made.
We try hard as a Waukesha County, our superintendents, we have our early morning conference call and we try to make decisions together. Now, there's times where that doesn't play out that way. Every district may have different circumstances or even different degrees of rural roads versus more city-like roads. In talking with the rest of the superintendents, there are some districts like Arrowhead that would be willing to try a late start, and others have flat out said they just cannot because of busing, staffing, and that doesn't mean that some couldn't do it and some couldn't. It does add more complications. We have students that travel between school districts. We have, a student through part-time open enrollment that comes here for 1 hour a day from a different district. We've got staff members that live in one district and work at Arrowhead and vice versa. So if one district's closed the whole day and another is a 2-hour delay, we expect staff members to have backup plans for childcare, but some of that between districts gets tricky. This last day, so we had the National Weather Service webinar was at 3:45 a.m. And during that webinar, the weather forecaster, I don't know his exact title, said the heaviest snow is right now and from 4 a.m. until 6 a.m. and it should drop off significantly. I talked to the bus company at 4:10 and he's saying the roads are impassable and I haven't seen a plow yet. Then we get on the phone at 4:25 with the other superintendents and we're hearing the reports of what their roads are like and that idea of maybe this would be a perfect time to try a late start because they're saying the snow was going to stop right about 6 a.m. I'm glad we didn't because that didn't happen. The snow kept going all morning and even into the afternoon. So some of that's tricky too, depending on the timing of the snowstorm and even the predictions aren't always accurate.
Have you ever thought of Saturdays or a snow day?
We haven't talked about Saturdays.
They did that in my district years and years ago when I was in high school. We had a Saturday makeup day. The attendance wasn't very good. But it was, just to fill that day.
Right.
Well, and we've had winters where we've never had snow days.
Oh, yeah.
And that's actually most
That's years.
not even one. So, I think when this kind of stuff happens, it's certainly a good lesson to be able to look at the options like you guys are doing and figure this stuff out. And then you probably don't want to make a drastic decision based on an odd year.
Right. Right.
Versus if we were Anchorage, Alaska, it was pretty guaranteed to happen all the time or whatever. So, but it's good. There's a lot of good ideas, and you never know what might come out of it that could be a permanent thing too.
Who knows that we're gonna have 48 below chill? I mean, what happened this year?
Yeah, you don't get to make cold days to go to school versus
Oh my God.
the snow.
Snow, right.
Okay. Any other questions?
I got one. Laura, can I get back on, since I don't have any kids in school anymore, I've missed those calls and those communications. Or as a board, if anybody else wants to get on, can I get my name back on that list? So I can get the phone call that school's canceled and then get like the communication you sent out to the parents?
At 4:30 or 5 in the morning.
Oh, yeah, we're usually moving anyway, but, yeah, because
Put Dave on that
I don't have, what?
list. I said put Dave on that list. Don't
Nobody
put
else
Dave.
wants to go on it? You don't want to know what's happening at Arrowhead?
Stone Bank's already taken care of that.
I'll forward it to you.
Yeah, well, I don't have TV, so I don't have the outside. I know what's going on in the emergency end of it, but,
And the letter that I sent out today, it was probably around 12:30 or 1 o'clock. I think that, did anyone receive that?
Yeah,
I think that
yeah.
should have gone, okay.
Yeah.
Talk to
Because
you earlier.
when it's an email, so in our Skylert system, the calls, there's different groups. So my school cancellation group is families and staff, and the board is not included. I have another list that's for emails that I can click on where it's all the families, all the staff, and 9 board members. So I was pretty sure I clicked on that just so you could see the correspondence to the
I think that's
families.
good, yeah.
Yeah, I came in like a different format today, like when I clicked on it, I can't remember, I looked at it as a parent, almost like it showed like it would be a recording, but I clicked on it to be the PDF.
Really? Wow.
Well, that's the way it was in our mail too, right? PDF?
Yeah, that's how it
Yeah.
was today, but like when I
Okay.
usually get correspondence from it.
Well, usually I
But
type it in that system, so you pull it up and it looks like a regular email. And this one I had drafted it because I was sharing it with other school districts.
Yeah.
So this one I just linked it as a document. But if the format doesn't turn out as well,
No, I mean,
then I'll
it
just,
was fine.
Okay. All right, thanks, Laura. Moving on to committee reports, curriculum. No report.
Finally gonna meet. 2 weeks from tomorrow.
All right.
Can I ask,
Then you'll-
though, at the board meeting, now that the classes have been signed up for, some of the new ones that we approved, do you have any numbers?
We have preliminary numbers, but we'll be able to talk about that at the curriculum committee.
Okay,
Yeah.
everybody show up, then you can all find out.
Yeah, yeah.
Because they are the greatest committee meetings, right?
Okay, absolutely.
We all know that.
All
The most entertaining.
Well, totally.
right. Moving on, finance and legislation, Craig.
I think Steve might have something to share with us.
Sure. We are kind of right in the middle of budget development, so don't have a whole lot to share, but we are looking at February 28th as, I believe, the date that Governor Evers is going to present his budget, which will include all of the, initial budget proposals that are coming from the state of Wisconsin. We'll get some idea as to how the money's going to get distributed. What is it going to go through the revenue limit? Is it going to be a per pupil aid amount? And then obviously that's just step one. Then the legislature takes its turn at the state biennial budget development. So that's obviously every other year at this time, like in the odd years like this, there's always a lot of uncertainty because of the unknown of the state biennial budget.
I
So
feel like there's more though this year. I mean,
yeah, I think there's more this year than in the past because obviously the Assembly and the Senate are Republican and the governor's office is Democrat. So I think they're going to have two very different ideas on how to divvy up all the budgeted funds. So so it might be a lengthy process, whether or not, who knows when it will get done. I mean, there's been budgets that haven't been done until August and,
Have we
potentially.
gone into the fall? I mean, where
This could be another one,
beyond the date
so.
that it's supposed to, it's gone into November when we don't know.
Right, don't you kind of feel compelled, Steve, to stick around until that's?
I was gonna say, do you really care? I mean, he's laughing, like, go ahead, take all the time you want this year. He's like, I got it made.
Turn it over.
But
Yeah,
if they can't come up with a budget, then it just reverts back to the previous one, correct? If they can't decide on something,
I
isn't
do
that?
not know.
That's what I thought, that's how it works. They always have a budget no matter what, but if they can't agree on one, it'll be what the previous one was.
I think they continue under the existing budget until the
Yeah,
budget is passed,
right,
yes,
yeah.
if that's what you're at, yeah.
Yeah, I've never experienced that, where they just reverted back. I mean, it's always been, it might have been late,
It was
But
late one year, I remember that.
but something always got
It got figured out.
figured out. But they do have some deadlines, obviously. We have to certify our levy by November 10th, so.
It's going close.
Yeah, exactly. We also have a finance committee meeting on February 26th, and we're going to talk about student fees, facility use fees, the budget calendar, legislative update. We'll see what we got, and we won't know anymore by then. Enrollment projections, we'll look at our long-range financial projections, and again, budget development, things of that nature, and we always look at the transportation contract. Now, a year ago, we did sign a 5-year transportation contract with Alston, and I'll just bring you up to date on where we're at with that, so. And that's all I have.
Great. Thanks, Craig.
Sure.
I'm glad you said that.
I always feel really important in these moments.
What's gonna happen in August?
Yeah.
You're sitting there.
I'll fire myself.
All right, moving on, building and grounds. Yeah.
Where's Kevin? He didn't show up? Yeah, just for information, that Waukesha County DPW is gonna be cutting down the trees along Highway K that were actually planted in the median or the right of way, so wouldn't allow that today, but. North Campus West, the west gym floor, as you recall, we're talking about replacing the floor. Last year, we repaired part of it. Part of the problem with that floor is there is mercury in it. Consequently, there's special abatements, procedures that have to be taking place, and all that kind of stuff. We set aside a budget last year of $500,000 for the removal of that floor and reinstallation of a new one. This has been received. They're looking at it. We got the bid of to remove and replace the same bleachers in the neighborhood of $18,000 to $25,000, where we got a price of $35,000 to $45,000 to replace the big bleachers with new bleachers. The existing bleachers, part of the floor can't be used, or I shouldn't say it that way. Bleachers can't be used if part of the floor is in use because there's a wall there, temporary wall for the gymnastics area that extends into the bleachers, and the bleachers can't be opened while that's there. One of the thoughts is to move them down so that can then be used. The bleachers we have are no longer in compliance with ADA requirements. They would be grandfathered in if we decide to use the same bleachers, but that's an issue for them as well. So this kind of may recommend proceeding with the new bleachers if it makes more space functional and falls within the budget. Football stadium visitor bleachers. May have noticed that we ripped those out a couple of years ago and we redid the stadium, and those haven't been replaced. So we've been renting bleachers for about tune of around $8,000 a year, $7,500, $8,000 a year. The bleachers that we have been being had pulled in here for that, the temporary bleachers, in some respects are a lot better than the ones that took out. So structurally they're more sound, but the boards and so on are still splinter ridden and that kind of stuff. There's no asphalt that needs to go in that area, so asphalt work needs to be done. We're looking at, when we do that, also extending a path up to north, across the north end beyond the bleachers, so the students can walk there instead of walk out into the road, okay, between the tennis courts. There are also pilings there for the old bleachers that need to be torn out. And other work that needs to be done there. So it's estimated cost approximately $428,000 to replace the bleachers and the infrastructure, if you will, asphalt work and that kind of stuff. Back in 2015-16, we budgeted $350,000 for it. We didn't do it at that point, so it reverted back into the general fund. And Ryan is looking at the possibility of getting some donations to help offset some of that cost. That would not be a requirement to have it donated, however, to go forward with that. We're looking at, we've been going on with this now for 4 years, I think it is. Rented bleachers, we've known we have to do this. It's as Amy so eloquently stated, this is a want, not a need, not a want. So we're looking at doing this probably in the 2020, ready for the 2020 football season, not 2019. So not this fall. This fall we may actually opt to not bring in rented bleachers and just have the visitors share the home field bleacher sections. So hopefully that won't create any issues. Could make things exciting. Kevin also gave an update on the building improvements, capital improvement, that kind of stuff. We've had some problems with air conditioners. We've had air conditioners that most air conditioners were installed, unfortunately, at the last referendum in 1999, so they're all pretty much of the same age and they're starting to fail. We had two of the air conditioning units fail. It would cost 50% of the cost of a new one to repair them. The decision was to go ahead and replace them. That was about $60,000 for 2 units, which was not anticipated, so that money had to come out somewhere else in the budget. So it came out of some of the control updates that were planned for this year. So a lot of the work for the air conditioning units, we've got some that are scheduled to be replaced or need to be replaced. We're really scheduled to be part of the 2 failed referendums. So that is going to be coming up at some point here. We are in a state where we're going to have to start replacing air conditioner or heating units and that kind of stuff. But unfortunately, emergency replacements are a lot more expensive than when you can plan for them. So that's pretty much it. Our next meeting is March 13th, 7 a.m. Not quite as much fun as curriculum, but interesting.
Can I just comment, for those coming, that March 13th meeting date is a change. Typically, it's the first Wednesday of the month, but due to a scheduling conflict that Kevin has, it's the second Wednesday of the month.
Good point, thank you.
So those in attendance can be here for a morning meeting at 7 a.m. and back for the school board meeting at 7 p.m.
Okay, moving on to personnel. We did meet on January 11th. This was a result of somebody deciding they want to leave us. So we had to have a meeting to discuss what we're going to do going forward.
I see an elbow coming over there.
And so that was the majority of our discussion, but it also prompted discussion about where are we at. So as you're aware, the board has a policy on pretty much all the hiring processes done here are under Laura's authority, except for the superintendent role, obviously.
I would have hired myself.
Yeah. So there was just some general discussion and there was a review of that particular policy, but everything is fine. In regards to the recruitment and the hiring process for the director position, that what Laura can fill you in on that, where that process is at right now. So
it's been a lengthy process. Thank you to 5 of the board members, the personnel committee of the board, as well as Craig, who is finance chair, was involved with the interviews. We had 19 total people apply. I conducted 7 or 8 screening interviews, and then the initial interviews were held last Thursday. Last Thursday night. Really good, strong candidates, and right now we're in the process of determining next steps with a top candidate that will be able to give more information likely next Wednesday.
Okay. All right, moving on to policy. Donna?
Next meeting is on March 21st. Kent and Sue and I were at the meeting on Monday with Bob Butler, and the majority of the stuff he had, it was very informative, and a lot of it was on policy, so we'll be reviewing some of those things at the meeting as well, just to make sure that we're all up to something.
Okay, other reports for the WASB. I did not end up going to the January 23rd because of the weather-related hazards that were in play. But, so I have to report on the delegate assembly, but did you go on the?
Yeah, I sat in for a little bit of the delegate assembly, which time for the actual assembly itself. I found it quite interesting. There was, there had to be 150 people there, I suppose, and probably about 30 people up on the dais, and very, very formal, very Robert's rules run. I mean, it was very, very interesting to watch and to see how it participated. The assembly, the meetings themselves, I sat in on a couple sessions that just fascinating. So it's the first time I've been down there in quite a few years. I was sorry for what I've missed in the last few years.
Did you go up there?
I was there.
Anything to report on them that you experienced?
I try to always go to a variety of sessions related to leadership and school board functioning and so forth. And I saw 2 of the 3 keynote speakers. They're very engaging. It's a good conference, and I enjoy networking. As much as I benefit from going to sessions, networking with colleagues and folks from other school districts across the state is always a learning experience, and I always come back feeling really fortunate to be part of Arrowhead.
I participated in a couple, I went down to a couple of days as well. I did go to the WASB delegate convention, but I did go to a seminar called A Deep Dive into School Finance. And it was, yeah, it was helpful.
It's online on the DPI website if anyone else wants to.
Have you watched it?
No, I just looked at it.
Okay.
Steve could have.
The same courses?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, Steve could have given the presentation himself. But, no, it was well done, and it was helpful. When you hear it again and again, it starts to sink in after a while. And you learn some things, of course, that you didn't know before. Like, there's a lot there. Very complex.
Yes.
I don't need to tell anybody that.
Just about the time you understand it, they change it.
Okay. Yep. Right, CISA, doing anything?
No, just the last meeting was really long. Because it's Mary gathering, right? We were doing the review for her. And I think she spoke 1 hour and 20 minutes, nonstop. And I mean, I'm saying that because she was giving the most complete overview of what she did the last year. I mean, and I really have, imagine this, I really haven't said anything at these meetings. I'm not like curriculum there, because I'm learning so much about what CISA does. And it's so totally different than anything that we do. And I just listened to her and listened to her. I mean, she like hardly took a breath. And she really does a lot. And then the staff and what they do and all. And it's really interesting because you're sitting there with people from the Milwaukee School District and Menominee Falls and Germantown and West Dallas and, you know, all these, and it's 18 different school districts. And you stop to just think about the different needs. Some very similar to what we have, but many very different. And it's really an incredible, they do really accomplish a lot of things and have a lot of incredible programs. I've enjoyed learning, I've enjoyed the listening. I'm sorry that I'm not I'm just still taking it all in and learning. But it is a completely different arm that, you know, we would hear about, and I listened to Al, but it didn't sink in until now. I'm just really sitting there and listening, and they really have their arms and feelings and everything, and it is very well run. Very, very, we are very lucky to have a CISA group that runs that well. I mean, we've got to be one of the top ones around, because it's done well. I mean, is that a fair?
I think so. I've always been pleased with CISA, not only the services they provide, but how accommodating and flexible they are. If they hear a need, they go out and look to develop a program.
They do.
Find
And
a
if you have
person.
something, you can go to them and say, we really have a need for this, and they will do that. And what might be a need here certainly isn't to the other 17 districts, but that's okay, they do this. And that's why Mary could talk for so long about, I just can't imagine how she keeps it all straight. But she is very accomplished and very good at what she does. And I just think that must be a model CISA that is looked at by other areas of the state, because they really, really do a lot of good things. So I'm really loving the opportunity to go each month and learn.
Great, thanks.
Thanks.
Right, moving on to new business employee transactions, we have a couple of resignations that were in your packet.
I move that we accept those resignations as listed.
Second.
The motion is second, any question on those? Hearing none, all in favor state aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Then we have some contracts and letters of appointment, were also in your packet.
I also move that we accept those contracts of appointment.
And I'd second that as well.
A motion and a second, any question on those? Hearing none, all in favor state aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Next action is discussion action to approve the school district of Elmbrook 6603 contractual agreement for 2019-2020.
And this is a continuation of what we've been doing for many years. I'd move that we approve that contract.
Second. A motion and a second, any questions on that? Hearing none, all in favor state aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Next action item is discussion action to accept donation, which is in your packet, from the Milwaukee Society of Plastics Engineers Education Foundation for $33.50.
Move that we accept that donation. With gratitude.
Second. A motion and a second, any
Have we gotten
questions?
something from
Who
them
found
before?
it?
What's that?
Have we gotten something from them before?
That sounds familiar.
Yes. Okay, yeah, it's hard to keep straight, but that's really nice.
Did one of our teachers manage to?
Tom Whalen is always the
Tom,
applicant for
is he?
it, and it's used specifically for the plastics used in our 3D printers.
Okay, thank you.
All right, so we have a motion and a second, any other questions? Hearing none, all in favor state aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Any future agenda items? Hearing none, entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
The motion and a second. All in favor, state aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you, everybody.